Okay, so you want to own a car wash, find a good corner, put up some equipment, charge people $12 to clean the thing they drive every day, watch the money come in. It sounds almost too simple. You're not refining crude oil. You're not managing underground storage tanks full of flammable liquid. You're spraying water on cars. Here's what nobody tells you before you sign the lease. The car wash business is one of the most capital intensive, operationally complex retail businesses in the country, relative to what it looks like from the outside. The gap between a well run location and a struggling one is almost entirely determined by decisions made before you open, not after. There are roughly 60,000 car washes operating in the United States right now. The industry generates somewhere between $15 and $17 billion in annual revenue. That number has been growing steadily for the past decade, driven by two things that have nothing to do with how good any individual operator is. Americans are buying more expensive vehicles and washing them more often. The shift towards subscription based unlimited wash memberships has fundamentally changed the economics of what used to be a pure transaction business. Before any of that matters to you, though, you need to understand what it actually costs to get into this thing. Car washes come in four distinct formats, and they are, in practical terms, four completely different businesses. The self service bay, where the customer does the work themselves with a wand and a coin slot, is the lowest cost entry point. Building one from scratch runs between $25,000 and $50,000 per bay. A typical installation has 4 to 8 bays. Total startup cost for a self-service location lands somewhere in the $200,000 to $500,000 range, depending on land, permits, and local construction costs. The revenue ceiling on this format is also the lowest. The business model depends almost entirely on volume and real estate cost. The in-bay automatic, the single-unit machine that pulls the car through or spins around it while the customer sits inside, is the next step up. Equipment alone runs $80,000 to $150,000 for the machine. Add the building, the site work, the water reclaim system, the permits, and a new in-bay automatic location costs between $500,000 $1.2 million all in. These are the units you see attached to gas stations and quick lube shops. They're often add-ons to an existing business rather than standalone operations. This was because the throughput ceiling, roughly 15 to 20 cars per hour, limits how much revenue a single machine can generate on its own. Then there's the exterior conveyor, or express tunnel. This is where the industry math starts to get genuinely interesting. A new express tunnel operation, the kind with a 100 to 200 foot conveyor belt that moves cars through at speed while automated equipment handles everything. Costs between $3 and $5 million to build from scratch. Equipment, building, land, water infrastructure, and permits. Some high-spec locations in expensive markets run closer to 6 or 7 million. It's a real capital commitment. But the throughput capacity is completely different from anything else in this category. A well-run express tunnel can process 100 to 150 cars per hour at peak. That throughput number is what the entire financial model is built around. The full-service tunnel, where employees dry, vacuum, detail the interior in addition to the exterior wash, adds labor cost back into the equation that the express model specifically designed to eliminate. Full-service locations typically run 15 to 30 employees per shift versus 3 to 6 for an express tunnel of similar volume. Startup costs are comparable or higher. The revenue per transaction is higher, usually $20 to $40 versus $10 to $20 at express, but the labor margin compression tends to make full service a harder business to scale than the express model. That is why most of the large format growth in the industry over the past decade has come from express tunnels, not full service locations. The capital efficiency of the express format, combined with lower operational complexity, has made it the preferred model for most new development and private equity acquisition strategies across the industry. Now the question that actually matters. Where does the money come from? And what does the margin structure actually look like? Start with revenue. An express tunnel car wash in a solid traffic location, meaning 20,000 or more vehicles passing per day on the road in front of it, can wash somewhere between 400 and 700 cars on an average day. On a busy Saturday in spring, that number can push past 1,000, at an average ticket of $14 to $18. A location processing 500 cars a day is generating $7,000 to $9,000 in daily revenue. Annually, that's somewhere in the range of $2.5 to $3.5 million in gross revenue for a single well-positioned location. Here's the part that changed the entire industry's math over the past 8 years: the unlimited membership model. A customer pays a flat monthly fee, typically between $20 and $40, can wash their car as many times as they want. For the operator, this converts unpredictable daily transaction revenue into recurring monthly income that shows up whether the customer visits once or 20 times that month. Most members wash between 3 and 5 times monthly. That means the average member cost per wash to the operator is well below what a single visit customer pays. The member also stops comparison shopping on price every time they approach the lane. They're already paid, they just drive in. Industry data from the International Car Wash Association puts average membership penetration at leading express operators somewhere between 60 and 75% of total washes. A location with 3,000 active members at $30 per month is generating $90,000 in recurring monthly revenue before a single retail customer pulls in. That revenue baseline is what's driven the wave of private equity investment into the sector over the past decade. This was because investors with experience in subscription businesses immediately recognized the model. It's not really a car wash, it's a recurring revenue platform that happens to use water and soap. The predictability of membership revenue also changes how banks evaluate these operations for financing purposes. A lender looking at a traditional transaction-based car wash and one with 70% membership penetration sees fundamentally different risk profiles. The membership operation has lower cash flow volatility, stronger contract visibility, and less sensitivity to seasonal fluctuation or local economic downturns. That difference in risk profile translates into better loan terms and higher lending appetite, which in turn has accelerated the industry-wide shift toward membership-dominant business models. Now for the expense side, which is where operators consistently underestimate the pressure on their margins. The single largest variable cost in a car wash operation is chemistry. The soaps, waxes, rinse agents, tire treatments that go onto every car. For an express tunnel, doing meaningful volume, chemical costs run between 40 cents and $1 per car, depending on the package mix. At 500 cars a day and 70 cents average chemical cost, that's $350 a day, or roughly $127,000 annually, just in chemistry for a single location. That number moves with volume and with how aggressively the operator prices their upsell packages. Utilities are the second major variable cost. A tunnel car wash is running pumps, blowers, conveyor motors, lighting. HVAC essentially around the clock during operating hours. Water usage runs between 15 and 40 gallons per car depending on whether the system reclaims and recycles water. That most modern operations do as both a cost control measure and a regulatory requirement. Total utility cost for a high-volume tunnel typically runs between 8 and 14% of gross revenue. For a location doing $2.5 million in annual revenue, that's $200,000 to $350,000 per year in electricity and water combined. Labor is the third major cost, and the express model's structural advantage over full service is most visible here. A well-run express tunnel operates with a small crew handling vehicle loading, monitoring equipment, managing customer flow at the entrance. Total labor cost as a percentage of revenue typically lands between 15 and 25% for express operations, versus 35 to 50% for full service. On $2.5 million in revenue, that's the difference between $375,000 and $625,000 in annual labor expense depending on format. That delta is why the industry has moved so decisively toward express. Debt service is where many new operators get squeezed hardest. A $4 million construction loan at current commercial rates over 15 years generates a monthly debt service obligation somewhere around $30,000 to $35,000. That's $360,000 to $420,000 per year coming off the top of revenue before any operating costs are paid, combined with a lease on land that runs $8,000 to $20,000 monthly at a good traffic location. The fixed cost structure of a new express tunnel build is between $500,000 and $700,000 annually before chemistry, utilities, labor, insurance, or maintenance. Equipment maintenance deserves its own line item in this conversation because it surprises operators consistently. A tunnel car wash runs mechanical equipment hard, processing hundreds of vehicles daily through a system of cloth, brushes, nozzles, conveyors that wear continuously. Annual maintenance on a tunnel system runs between 3 and 8% of equipment replacement cost. On a $500,000 equipment package, that's $15,000 to $40,000 per year under normal conditions. A major component failure, a conveyor drive, a high-pressure pump, a blower stack. can run $10,000 to $30,000 for parts and labor on a single repair event. Operators who don't carry a meaningful maintenance reserve find out what that emission costs them at the worst possible time. Stack it all up. A single express tunnel location doing 2.8 million in annual gross revenue with a reasonable membership base, decent traffic count, competent management is carrying roughly $500,000 to $600,000 in fixed costs, $400,000 to $550,000 in variable operating costs, $200,000 to $300,000 in debt service. That puts net operating income before owner compensation and taxes in the range of $400,000 to $700,000 annually for a well-run location. Expressed as a margin, that's somewhere between 15 and 25% net. That's a real business. The return on investment picture depends almost entirely on how you got into the location and what you paid for it. A new build costing $4 million generating $600,000 in annual net operating income represents a cap rate of about 15%. That is excellent by commercial real estate standards. The problem is that not every location performs at that level. The variance between a 3 and a 5 on any given site variable, traffic count, road accessibility, local competition density, membership conversion rate, can shift that 600,000 number to 250,000 in a hurry. At 250,000 on a $4 million investment, the return is 6.25%. At that point, you are not running a high return business. You are running real estate with a lot of moving parts and a chemical bill. Acquiring an existing car wash rather than building from scratch carries a different risk profile. Express tunnel operations have been selling in the range of 5 to 8 times EBITDA in recent acquisition markets, driven by the private equity appetite for membership-based businesses that began in earnest around 2015 and has not fully cooled since. A location generating $600,000 in EBITDA is trading hands at $3 to $4.8 million. You're paying a premium over construction cost for a proven location, an existing membership base, the elimination of construction and lease-up risk. What you're also potentially paying for, if you skip environmental and mechanical due diligence, is someone else's deferred maintenance problem and an equipment package that's closer to the end of its useful life than the financial statements suggest. The membership base itself carries valuation risk that many first-time buyers underestimate. A large percentage of existing members are price-sensitive customers who signed up during a promotional discount period. When renewal time comes around and they see the full price offer, churn rates can spike dramatically. A location with an apparently healthy 3,000 member base might lose 30 to 40% of those members in the first year if retention strategy isn't actively managed from day one of ownership. The geographic and regulatory dimension of the business is underappreciated by first-time buyers. Water use restrictions in drought-prone regions, particularly across the American Southwest and California, can limit operating hours, mandate recycling systems, or in extreme cases result in temporary closure orders that have nothing to do with how the business is run. A car wash that reclaims and recycles 80% of its water has a fundamentally different regulatory vulnerability profile than one operating on a single-pass flow-through system. Several municipalities have moved toward mandatory reclaim requirements for new construction permits. That adds $50,000 to $150,000 to a new build startup cost, but dramatically reduces exposure to future water restriction events. The unlimited membership model also creates its own specific operational risk that the industry is still working through. Heavy users, customers who wash 5, 6, or 7 times per month, cost significantly more to serve than the average member at 3 to 5 visits. In a poorly managed membership program where the entry-level tier is priced too low, heavy user volume can actually compress margins rather than expand them. The operators running the most profitable membership programs are the ones tracking per-member wash frequency carefully, building tiered pricing that reflects the real cost of unlimited access, actively managing the discount offer pipeline that new member acquisition tends to depend on. Run a membership program carelessly and you've built a recurring revenue model that loses a small amount of money on every transaction at scale. The express tunnel car wash in a strong traffic corridor with a well-executed membership program, tight chemistry, and utility management. A construction cost that penciled out at the time the site was acquired is a genuinely strong small business. Net margins in the 15 to 25% range, recurring revenue, low labor intensity relative to revenue. Strong local defensibility because the physical infrastructure of a tunnel car wash is not something a competitor installs next door in 6 weeks. The locations that struggle are almost always struggling for reasons that were visible before the ribbon cutting. A traffic count that never materialized, a competitive location that opened 18 months later on the same corridor, or a construction cost that made the math work only if everything went right. The machine is not complicated. The real work is in the site selection and the capital structure. By the time you're washing cars, both of those decisions are already locked in.